guys, it's me, Amanda again, and today we have Morticia and Gomez, the Peruvian black beauty stick insects. So these stick insects are not insects you're gonna find around here in Texas. While we do have stick insects here in Texas, they look a lot different. They're typically more brown, they look more like wood or trees, which helps them to camouflage in their surroundings. So these guys, where they're found in South America, they would also be able to camouflage in their surroundings, except their surroundings are a little different because they are from the Peruvian rainforest. These guys are really interesting to me because they weren't discovered until 2007, which when you think about that, humans have been on this planet for a very long time. So if they weren't discovered until 2007, these guys did a really good job at camouflaging in their surroundings. Now, something that I want to point out on Gomez here, if you see these little red dots on his back, those are actually wings. Now, those wings are very, very small and they can't actually use them anymore to be able to fly. So they're what we call a vestigial organ. Humans also have a vestigial organ. It's called the appendix. It's located inside of our digestive system. Scientists have been trying to figure out for a very long time what the actual use of the appendix was, and there's a couple different theories. But basically, a vestigial organ is something that used to be useful to us and now no longer is, but it's like a remnant in the body. Maybe someday we'll no longer have it, but as of right now, it's just still there. You know, kind of a fun little extra piece. But they like to show those off sometimes, and he actually is curling his tail, and he can actually, for defense against predators, secrete a noxious little liquid that can be stinging to the eyes. So he's ready, he's calm, but he's alert, if you will, if something that were threatening were to come by. Now, these guys are what we call dimorphic, meaning they have two forms. And in this case, the males are different from the females. The males are actually a little bit smaller than the females. And this is a good example that we can see across many different animals across the animal kingdom. A good example I like to do is lions. The males have big fluffy manes versus the females. They don't have the manes. They're a little bit more sleeker, more panther-like. So these guys aren't an invasive species, but they do have the potential to become an invasive species. And because we know that, we do take a couple of precautionary steps here at Frank Buck Zoo to make sure that they don't turn into an invasive species here in Texas and possibly spread throughout the country, because we wouldn't want that, because invasive species can do a lot of damage to the environment. So, fun fact, their fecal material and their eggs look very similar. So whenever we're cleaning up after them every day, what we do is we take all of their fecal material / eggs and we ethically freeze them for at least a couple of days. And once they're frozen for a couple of days, we don't necessarily have to worry about them hatching once they are properly disposed of. And on top of that, we also make sure that their habitat is properly secure. That way they can't get out. And that's how we prevent any of the animals we might have here at the zoo that would normally be considered invasive if they were out in the wild from contributing to the invasive species that we do have here in Texas. So invasive species, they're an issue here in Texas, and not just in Texas, there's issues all over the world because of invasive species. And an invasive species is basically just any animal that we wouldn't find natively here in the area. Reasons why that they're issues is for a couple of reasons. For example, they can actually increase competition for food amongst our native animals. So if our animals are competing for food, they might not be able to survive long enough to reproduce to make more of their kind, meaning it could contribute eventually to becoming endangered or even becoming extinct. They can also have some economic issues. For example, another animal that we have here in the state of Texas are fire ants. Believe it or not, fire ants are not native to the state of Texas. They actually came from South America, and they were brought back all the way in the 1930s by accident by a ship in Alabama. And since then, in the 1930s, they've slowly made their way across the southern United States to become as big of an issue as they are. And believe me, I grew up in Michigan. We don't have fire ants in Michigan, and it was a big, rude awakening to discover my first fire ant when I moved down here to Texas. So obviously a lot of money is spent every year eradicating these fire ants, whether they come into your home, whether or not you maybe have an allergic reaction to them when they bite you. Some people have very severe allergic reactions that require EpiPens, and they can also cause damage to food sources. Anyways, thanks so much for watching this video and have a good day. And hopefully he'll just stay there for the entire video.
And just stare